What's up, guys? How's it going? My name is Randall. I'm a developer evangelist here at Okta, and today I'm going to be walking you through something that I think is pretty exciting, which is how do you, as a web developer, prevent your users from using passwords on your website that have been compromised in a previous data breach. That's really the topic that we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to sort of walk you through what data breaches are, why they're dangerous, why you don't want to allow your users to reuse these passwords that have been leaked in breaches. And then I'm also going to show you how you can basically add this protection into any websites that you run with a single line of code. So yeah, that's basically it. So if you take a look at the screen here, the first thing we're going to do is talk about data breaches. Now, a data breach is basically what happens when a company gets hacked and all of the user information is leaked. So for instance, when Adobe was hacked several years back and all their usernames and passwords were leaked, when Sony was hacked back in 2014, when Match.com was hacked, in a lot of these cases, when the usernames and passwords are sort of leaked online, what attackers do is actually go through, they download all this, compromised data, all this breached data, so to speak, and they basically build a big database of all the compromised passwords and email addresses. And so what attackers do then is they basically look at these passwords, and so when they're trying to compromise someone else's account, so let's say for instance that like during the Adobe breach, your password, which is I love my mom, was leaked. Okay, it was breached. If an attacker gets a hold of that password, the attacker's going to think, well, some real person used this password, and I know that because it was compromised in the Adobe leak that I have. And so the next time they're trying to crack into someone's account and try different passwords to get in and stuff like that, one of the first things they're going to do is they're going to try logging into your account using all of these compromised passwords. So even though there's billions and billions of these leaked passwords out there online, that's a hell of a lot easier for an attacker to go through than just randomly generating passwords and hoping that it's the right one. Because if an attacker knows that a password has been used in the past, the likelihood that someone else is using it or that you are still using it is really, really high. And so one of the best practices recently that came out is that NIST, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology, recently recommended that whenever you're building any sort of web application where users are giving you a password, they actually recommended that you as a developer, the best practice is that when users give you a password, you check it against the database of breached passwords and make sure that the password the user is giving to you isn't one that's in there. And if it is, you need to tell the user to either change their password or to pick a new password if they're like registering, creating an account on your site and stuff like that. So with all that said, how do we get access to a bunch of breached passwords? Well, the old school way would literally be to Google it. Like for instance, Adobe download passwords, right? And I'm sure we could actually, password dump. I'm sure we could actually go through here and actually find the torrents online on the Pirate Bay and stuff like that and actually download all the data illegally. One of the problems with that though is that there's a million companies whose data has been breached, and there's going to be a million more in the next few years. And so you as an individual developer, it would be a huge pain in the butt, right? To go out there online, find all these data breaches all the time, download the data, clean it up, put it into some standard database that you can use to query against. It would just be sort of a nightmare. The second option though is to use this awesome service called Have I Been Pwned? Now this service is actually run by someone who's an extremely prolific developer and writer, Troy Hunt. This is a project of his. He works at Microsoft. He's an awesome person. And what this allows you to do is it actually allows you to see basically where have your credentials been leaked online. So you can actually use the site to search. So I can put in my personal info, for instance. And it actually tells me that, in Bitly actually leaked my credentials a while ago. So did the Bitcoin forum, which I've been a member of, and so did this site called Geeked In. So this is where my credentials have been compromised. So basically what happens is Troy goes out, organizes all these databases of breached data, puts them into this website, and he lets you do one of two things with this. So first off, he actually allows you to download this data directly. So if you're on the Have I Been Pwned site here, you can actually come on here and download a torrent or download it directly through the web. And it's about 8.8 gigabytes at the current time I'm recording this of just leaked data. So you can get the data, it's all hashed, so he doesn't actually give you the plain text passwords, which there's a reason why. But basically, it's in a format where you can easily check it. Now, this is your first option. The problem with this again, though, is if you want to make sure that users aren't entering in, passwords on your site that have been compromised in the past, then this means you're gonna have to come to his site, download this massive file pretty regularly, update your database with it, And that could just be a huge pain in the ass. So what's great about Have I Been Pwned is that there's also an API. And with the API, you can actually hit these different API endpoints here to see whether or not a password has been compromised. And this is pretty useful. Now, one of the first questions you might be having is, well, if this guy is storing a big database of passwords and I want to check my user's password, is it really safe for me to take my user's password and send it to this third-party API service over the internet? Is that something secure to do? And the answer is no. And luckily, that's not the way that this works. So the way that Troy and Have I Been Pwned actually handles this is through a model known as K-anonymity. You can actually read all about this if you Google K-anonymity. Here's the first blog post, which is from Cloudflare. They actually talk about it. But basically, what ends up happening is whenever one of these passwords is breached, Troy Hunt ends up storing this data as a password hash. And it's in the SHA-1 format. So it's like a long string of irreversible numbers and letters. From that point, the way that the API call works, and I can actually pull this up for you here. But basically, to use this API, you're going to send an API request to api.pwnedpasswords.com/range/. Then you're basically just going to put in the first 5 characters of the password hash, not the actual password. Then what's going to happen is this API is going to return a list of all the different password hashes from their database that have those first 5 characters. And it's going to include the remaining parts of the password hash and then the number of times that it occurs in breached data. So for instance, if this was the password you were searching for, the password hash, this might be a result, and this will let you know that, oh, you know what, the password that you're checking against has been compromised 1 time. This password down here, if the hash ended up matching, you know that it would have been compromised twice, and so forth and so on. And so one of the things that I was thinking about, and this was several weeks ago, is what are some ways to leverage the awesome work that Troy has done with Have I Been Pwned and make it more accessible to casual web users, okay? And that is where Pass Protect comes into play. And I'll pull this up right now. So Pass Protect is really a couple different things. First off, it's a developer library. That's what we're going to be talking about in this video. And it's a developer library that allows you to basically insert a single line of JavaScript code in your site, and it will automatically start checking the passwords that users are entering into your website and see if they've been breached. Now, it's actually a little bit easier for me to just show this to you than to explain the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up our GitHub repo. It's github.com/octasecurity/passprotect-js. You can come here. I have all the documentation, the README and such. And by the way, this is open source. It's free to use. There's 0 rate limits. You can put this into any website that you want. It's pretty nice. Now, I'm in a little testing folder right here on my computer right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and first open Tmux. And secondly, I'm just going to create a simple index.html file. So in my index.html file, I'm going to start a simple document. I'm just going to call this test. And what I'm going to put in here is I'm going to build a really simple, just login form basically. So I'll say, login, input type equals text or password, name equals password. And they'll have one more input, which is an email. Cool. And then finally, we might have a submit button. I just updated my editor here, and I'm using a new keyboard. Sorry. Bam. There we go. Now, if we pull this up, in our browser, this is what the page looks like right now. So as you can see, we have this little email input, and we have this little text box over here. And so that's where we're at currently. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to add some protection to our login form so that basically anytime I type my password in here, it's going to go ahead and check it against the Have I Been Pwned API, and it's going to see whether or not the password I'm entering is weak or not. So it sounds pretty simple. So if I'm reading through the Pass Protect library on GitHub, basically I have a link here on how to use it. You're just going to copy the script tag, and you're going to put it literally anywhere you want inside of the page. I'll put it up in the head tag just to be simple, but this can actually go literally wherever you want. Actually, you know what? I'll put it at the bottom of body. So we got our tag here. Now it's going to cdn.passprotect.io, that's our site, /passprotect.min.js. Now this entire library is 16 kilobytes. It's very, very small. It loads really quickly. This is actually cached on Amazon CloudFront, so it's distributed around the world. It's really, really fast. And the cache is basically set to invalidate. So it's the most performant type of setup you can get. Now, if I have this page here and I reload it, then what's going to happen is if I end up typing a weak password into this box, so let's say I type in the word test, T-E-S-T. As soon as I remove focus from that box, I'm immediately going to get this pop-up that says unsafe password detected. The password you just entered has been found in 68,340 data breaches. This password is not safe to use. This means attackers can easily find this password online and will often try to access accounts with it. If you are currently using this password, please change it immediately to protect yourself. For more information, visit Have I Been Pwned, and there's a link out. Finally, we also say that this notice will not show again for the duration of the session to give you time to update this password. So this is what PassProtect does. It actually makes this work and gives your user some information about the password that they're using, why it's not okay to use, and gives them some information so they can go and update it if they need to. Now, if I come back on this page again and I type in a different password, let's say test2, you'll see that this has also been breached, but only 1,943 times. And if I type in test2 again, after I just click that I understand button, I'd no longer get a warning. And this is because the way that this session stuff works is that we will only reprompt the user with this message for the same password after they've closed the tab and gone away and then come back later. This way we're not trying to, annoy the users with too many pop-ups, too much information, etc. So this is really all PassProtect does. It's just a very simple, minimalistic tool, free and open source, that is going to help you protect your users from using breached passwords, give them a little bit more information about it as well, and it requires basically zero development work on your part other than copying and pasting this JavaScript tag into your site. Now, if you want to use PassProtect on every single site that you work on, oh, and by the way, one thing I should mention is the way PassProtect works is it looks for any password input box on the site. So as long as you have the script tag embedded in every page of your site, you're absolutely fine. It will bind itself only to run when there's a password element detected on the page. That's the only time that it functions. It doesn't grab any info whatsoever. And if you want to get this sort of functionality enabled on your website for your users, again, all you do is copy the script tag into your site and you're good to go. Now, for those of you who want to use this functionality like outside of your website, right? So it would be sort of nice in some cases to have this functionality enabled across just every website you use. Luckily, there's actually a Chrome extension that I just built a couple weeks ago. Here it is. It's called PassProtect. We currently have a little over 12,000 users, almost 13,000. And this actually provides the exact same functionality, except in Chrome itself. So if I go to literally any site on my computer with this extension installed, and you can actually see it right here. This is the PassProtect extension. And I type in any weak password. If I type in the word test here, then bam, you can see that I also immediately get the password warning messages. So that's it. That's a wrap. Just to recap real quickly, data breaches leak a lot of users' personal information, including emails and passwords, out onto the internet. This literally happens all the time. The new NIST standard and the new recommendation from NIST, is that you as a developer protect your users from using breached passwords whenever they give you a password. And so one of the easiest ways to comply with the new NIST recommendation and just in general make the web a little more secure for your users is to embed a library like PassProtect into your site so that all of your users get this protection and you don't need to do any special work to make it happen. And finally, if you want to use PassProtect outside of your site, I strongly recommend you go check out our PassProtect Chrome extension. You can go give it an install. It's really simple and it only does exactly what I described. And if you want to contribute, hit us up on GitHub or shoot me a message. Thank you, and take it easy.